menace to sobriety. Just a menace, just a menace, just a menace, menace to sobriety.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Menace to Sobriety with your host Daniel O'Reilly, and I've got a really interesting episode here for you guys. I think this episode is going to have huge impact on the way we all think around drink and cocaine and the come down. This is a massive one for me. I first saw the guest that I'm going to bring on here on the Central Club podcast. Cullum had invited me on his podcast, which I did, and he sent me through these clips and said, you'll find this really interesting, and it grabbed me straight away. My guest is Nicola Abraham. Her and David both lost their eldest son, Jacob, in October 2015, aged just 24. He had taken his own life after a weekend out with his friends, during which they later learned that he drunk alcohol and took cocaine. His best friend also took his life 8 months later with cocaine in his system. And yeah, I'm going to get into this, but the thing that really sparked my interest is the fact that neither of these lads had, especially Jacob, didn't have any sort of existing mental health problems, and it was a big surprise. And the research and everything that Nicola had done here into cocaethylene and its effects just sparked my interest and made me want to get this message out there. So without further ado, welcome, Nicola. That was a tough intro.
Thank you.
It's such a sensitive subject that I always worry that I'm going to get things wrong and stuff like that. So sorry if I was a bit stuttery, but
no, that's absolutely fine.
It's
it's fine.
Thank you so much for coming. You've come all the way from Wales for me, haven't you?
From Cardiff this morning, yes. So thank you for having me on here, because it's another platform where I can tell my story and raise awareness around the issue of cocaethylene. So thank you.
No, thank you. We've had a few Zoom calls on the lead up to this, didn't we?
Yes, we have.
We've had a couple of Zoom calls, me, you and Mandy.
Yes.
And I was just, you could tell, right? It just sparked so much interest in my brain. It just really, and I could relate to so much that we were talking about through my own experience. And then I just found that this cocaethylene substance that just talk to me about that first of all. What is cocaethylene?
So cocaethylene is a substance that's created once you've taken alcohol and cocaine. So it creates another substance in your liver. And what it does then, it creates a chemical substance that can cause, it can cause a psychotic kind of substance.
And this is what really, really grabbed my attention, right? Because the whole point about Jacob that you initially couldn't get your head round, I guess we'll get into the story as well, was, what was the cause? What was the cause of him taking his own life? Is there a link here about this? And we spoke about it in depth about like this psychosis. What do you call it? Like an excited delirium?
It's called an excited delirium. So basically, when you take cocaine and alcohol, it gets the neurological and metabolical system into supercharge, and it creates this excited delirium. So the characteristics from that is severe agitation, severe aggression towards others, this kind of unexplained physical strength that they get. So it can kind of create that. And not only does it kind of impact on kind of mental health, but also physical health as well. So it will get the heart kind of, the blood pressure rising, the heart rate going. And it's known as well for kind of like, heart attacks. It's very common in young people who are having heart attacks. So I think we're on this journey to kind of raise awareness of the issues around coethylene and really prevent deaths, because it's very preventable. It's a preventable issue, and so we talk about it.
The thing that really got me, that sort of blew me away, that surprised me, was when you said to me, what you believe is that people could go out, they could use cocaine, they could drink and have a perfectly fine come down.
Yeah.
But one time, like what happened to Jacob and his friend, is you could go out, you could use cocaine, you could use alcohol, you could have just the right mixture of cocathylene that could set off this delirium, this excited delirium, which like you said is like a psychosis, right?
Yeah.
And you could have no control over it and just well.
Yeah.
Die by, you corrected me about the right to the correct term. It's not, we shouldn't say commit suicide because
it's die by suicide. So the term committed came about kind of 60 years ago when suicide was a crime.
Right.
And that's why they refer to it as committed suicide. But what we're trying to do now is to kind of reduce the stigma. And by doing that, we're changing the language. So we call it die by suicide. Yeah. But sadly, we're kind of like 6 decades on and still people are using the term committed suicide. So it's just, I mean,
it's about educating.
And it's something we were ingrained in, you know, something, you know, we heard our parents and grandparents refer to it that way. But we've supported people who maybe their loved one had died by suicide 20, 30 years ago and wouldn't speak about it because of, again, the stigma around it. And when now they've heard the term, it's died by suicide, they feel
a little bit easier
to speak about it now. So we kind of, it's not a crime. It's not a crime. Suicide's not a crime. It haven't been for 60 years. So you know, hopefully we can.
So I really want to get into how you came about this, because I believe what sparks my interest could spark the viewers' interest out there. And I used the situation with a couple of times when we were talking on the Zoom call with Leah Betts all them years ago when she died from taking a pill, taking ecstasy in Essex in a nightclub, and suddenly like this realization to everyone. I mean, it turned me off the pills. I was always a little bit scared of taking pills because there was this thing, you could die from it, but there doesn't, like, I mean, people know, you know, if you have too much cocaine you could overdose, or if you have too much cocaine that you could have a heart attack. But I'd never in a million years realized, and I related what you were saying to how I felt on some of my come downs, because I had this madness. My problem with my relationship and everything like that wasn't when I was high. It, you know, I mean, that caused a lot of problems, me being out of the house. But I was a nutter the next day on the come down. It was like my world was falling apart, and I had like this, like you said, delirium. Sometimes I had to leave the house, and it was. And what I want to do is I want to get this point across to the viewers that you could never consider dying by suicide, and then you could just have this could just overcome you. So. Talk me through what happened with Jacob and how you got on this journey.
Okay, so we lost Jacob in October 2015. He just turned 24. And I think anyone that knew Jacob, even, you know, kind of including myself, the shock was so profound, because he was like the last person you would ever think of to take their own life. He had everything in abundance. You know, he was young, he was handsome, he had a good job, he had lots of friends, he was athletic. And from a mental health perspective, he didn't suffer with his mental health. If anything, Jacob was so laid back. If he was ever in a stressful situation, he'd just remove himself from that situation. I told you the story of him when he had his GCSEs and it was a bit overwhelming on the day and he found the paper too hard. So you just get up and walk out of it. So he was extremely laid back. Nothing kind of like fazed Jake. If we were talking about phones earlier, sometimes he wouldn't have a phone for a long time because he couldn't deal with the hassle of it. Jake lived in his world, he was laid back, and that was Jake. I was at the time a senior practitioner with a counselling degree and worked for a leading charity. So I kind of thought, well, I would have picked up on, you know, any mental health issues. But what happened was on the 10th of October, Jacob had gone to a rave, we'd gone on a night out, and the following day he took his own life. So for me, when that happens, when you lose someone by suicide, I mean, the thing that consumes you the most is why. Why have this person done, you know, why have they done this? And particularly as a mum as well, I kind of think, where did I go wrong?
Yeah, what did I miss?
What did I miss? Where have I gone wrong here? So I think being consumed with the why, it kind of gets you kind of investigating as to why. I had to know what had happened to my son for him to walk, you know, out of the house on that Saturday afternoon and take his life. So we kind of like, you know, rewind and we think, right, okay, he had a night out. Okay, he had a night out with his friends. When I spoke to other friends and his brother, he'd stayed out all night, he hadn't slept, and he was complaining of the hangover from hell. So, okay, we look at that. And then you kind of look back in kind of hindsight and think, well, actually, he did struggle when he had a night out. You know, we had this laid back, happy-go-lucky kind of young man, but on a night out, he did struggle. And, sometimes I'd ask the question, he couldn't sleep. So if he had a night out, he wouldn't be able to sleep the next day. And I would say things like, is you using anything more other than just alcohol? Is there drugs involved in here? Is there cocaine? And, he wouldn't obviously open up to me and he'd be like, no, nothing. And I just can leave it at that. I take his word for it. And I think for me as a parent, I never tried drugs. They always petrified me. Like you talk about the Leah Betts thing. I never tried drugs because I always thought I'd be that one, ended up dead or in kind of A&E. So I never really understood kind of like why people would want to take drugs. For me, like, why would you do it anyway? Why would you be that stupid? So, I think I wasn't that understanding and, not many people would open up to their parents about drug use anyway. So I think there was something going on there. I thought, there's maybe he's using a little bit more. But he was very self-aware of that. And, nights out bothered him. So he would often avoid nights out. And, he was 24 years old. On a Saturday night, he'd be sat at home up in his bedroom. And then that was not good because you think, well, he's young and he's missing out on life. But he was aware of
how it made him feel
the next day. And before he died, he kind of went into kind of a 6-week sobriety himself. He didn't go out. And I remember he said to me, I know what I'm going to do, Mum, to stop me going out. I'm going to throw all my good clothes out, the good gear out, so I can't go out because I haven't got no clothes.
He was really going, like,
he was really kind of, self-aware. And, myself and his dad say, you're young, don't worry, stop beating yourself up, stop loathing. But in a way to us, it was that, the self-loathing. And, I mean, we can all relate to hangover and how shit we feel on a hangover. But, of course, there was like, when we look into cocathylene, it's kind of like stops that serotonin and dopamine levels. It attacks all that. So all that feel good stuff is just kind of depletes all that. So there was all that going on for him. So like I said, I kind of like investigated into it. Then I got his phone back. After he died, I got his phone back and I got into his phone. I guessed his password and I got into his phone. And then there was messages then to friends after a night out, how he looked, cocaine was great at the time. So my answers were there. He'd been using cocaine, but the next day it made him feel so depressed and, why did he feel like this? So it was all there. There was some on there saying, I'm in bed today thinking of ways how to die. I was like totally unaware of that this was going on, the following day. So that came back, and then of course we had the inquest then, and the inquest confirmed that there was cocaine and alcohol in his toxicology. So that got me on kind of this road then of, right, okay, I need to raise awareness. And what we did when Jacob died, the community, they were fantastic. They all came together. They raised kind of like lots and lots of money, and we decided to set up a foundation in his name. And we did that. So we set up this foundation. And I think what I wanted to do was like educate people in suicide intervention and prevention because it is preventable. I wanted to be able to set up a safe space as well for other young men to come in and talk about kind of their problems, their issues, their drug use. And also I wanted to support people who were also bereaved by suicide as well because for us, Jacob was found by his younger brother, his 20-year-old brother.
I didn't know that.
We were offered no support, nothing. We were just left. Police came, did what they had to do, and that was it, gone. And I can remember saying to my son, well, what have they left us? Like, who do we contact now? Where's the leaflet with the details on? And there was nothing. So I quickly learned that when, you're left bereaved through suicide, there was no support there. So for me, I wanted to set up, kind of counselling for people who were bereaved through suicide. And so that's what we did. And what I did then, I did a documentary rewind again. Sadly, within the 8 months after Jacob dying, his childhood best friend also took his life, again, after a night out. he took his life, and within that same week, another friend took his life. So
God.
that we were left with 3 young men, and again, all the link was cocaine and alcohol. So we did a programme for Welsh ITV called Wales This Week, because at that time there was a huge rise in male suicide within that age group of like 18 to 35. And Wales This Week wanted to cover it. So we met with the producer and we wanted to speak about the 3 friends that had taken their life. And then we started talking about the link between cocaine and alcohol. And the producer said, right, okay, so the second part of the documentary, I want to talk about this. And we did. As you can imagine then, the next day, I was just inundated with bereaved families saying, this was my loved one, this was my loved one. There was no history of mental health, and after a night out, they'd taken their own life. There was cocaine and alcohol in toxicology. So I've become inundated, and I mean from all over the country. And I started like this small army of bereaved parents, or family saying, yeah, this is my child, this is my son, this is my husband.
And then you saw it.
And then we saw it, and we thought, right, we need to do something, about this. I then did a campaign with The Sun online called The End of the Line, where we spoke about this link. And then I did the Victoria Derbyshire show. They covered this story. But it was a little bit, I'm going to say this, under-researched, because I think they'd said, we've got connections of 13 people who died by suicide after using alcohol and cocaine. And I was thinking, there's 13 in my community. This is so under-researched. There's probably hundreds and hundreds. So we kind of got somewhere with it, and then we hit the pandemic. So we kind of all had a bit of a lull then and fizzled. In the meantime, I was approached by 2 other mums who were quite kind of open to being active about this, and they wanted, their sons had died by suicide after using cocaine, and another person who's got lived experience through suicide. And what we decided to do is form a co-alkalliance task force group. So we'd come together and we'd try and get the message out there. We wanted Public Health Wales to kind of sit up and take notice and say, for me, I always thought there's a rise in suicide in young men between this age group, and this was the connection, but nobody was listening. So we presented ourselves to Public Health Wales and said, look, you've got a real problem with this. And if you speak to young men and women on the social scene, they'll tell you that it's everywhere, and sometimes it's unavoidable, and people are using. But what they wanted was kind of facts and figures and data. And the only way we can get kind of like the data of use is from an inquest. But our problem is that not all inquests, or when there's an inquest, that they do a toxicology report. So we weren't picking up on kind of like the true numbers there. And then even when there was a toxicology report, that said that there was alcohol and cocaine in that person's system, they wasn't recording it as a suicide. They were recording it as accidental or misadventure.
Oh my God! So
we couldn't get kind of like the true figures of this big problem, and I think this is the issue that we're still having. So that's where we want to be. We want to be out there and saying, "Come on, somebody take this from us," and we're exhausted, and we've brought this to light. We need somebody now to kind of say, this is a huge problem and something needs to be done about it. We have got a university in South Wales, the South Wales University, that has taken on the research, because there's very little research done into the link with alcohol and cocaine and suicide. And I think what research has been done, it's kind of mainly in America, and this is where the excited delirium come from, and the cocathylene. So we've got the university now, they're starting their research into kind of looking at the links between alcohol and cocaine. And we've got a kind of like a bit of funding to take this further. We do stuff online. We've got a website as well that would give out kind of like all the information around it. But it's bigger than us, and we need somebody to say, right, this is a big issue, and people do need supporting.
But yeah, first up, thank you, and I'm committed to helping you, Nicola. I'm committed to helping. So I just related so much to, I related to, you know, some of the trigger words that you were saying to me, like about the delirium and stuff. I went through some personal stuff that, you know, I won't share on the podcast, but I told you some bits about stuff that had happened to me, and you and Mandy were like, yeah, you know, it's very similar, you know, these like overwhelming racing thoughts and kind of losing control. But the thing that really perked my interest in this is I thought to myself, well, this is something I can really help with. You know, if you can get hold of the people that can put together, you know, like the research and that, we can use my social media, we can use my men and their emotions, mental health group, we can use my audience to say, right, we need people to come in and to talk about this and to take part in it. So, and anyone that can help with any of that, I'd love to do a documentary on it. Anyone that can help any of that, get to us. But I just wanted to go into something, because I think like what would really help would be like a campaign, right? Like a TV campaign or something like that. That because listen, I mean, in my own friendship group myself, I've got my good pals. They had 10 years apart, two lads, same thing, drinking, using. That's just in my group of friends, two lads, right? So it's out there, and I think that, you know, if we could do some sort of campaign, or we could raise awareness where it's saying like, look, you don't have any control over this. This could happen to you. And people are saying like, you know, and if you think about it, all of the actual narrative and help and stuff around suicide, it's not directed at this at all, at this situation, because like, you know, like saying, you know, here's some helplines, it's okay to talk and stuff like that. If you find yourself in this like excited delirium on a come down where you might like, didn't you say that this cocathylene actually can create
yes, so it creates a psychoactive substance, and is that like acid? Yes. So what it does, I'm no medical. This is where we needed Mandy. Mandy, one of the other parents, she's the nurse, and she's done the research into this. She's an academic, so I'm just kind of going on. We've got her paper, and it's kind of an easy read to understand.
So this is
what? It's
for the facts. We check with Mandy for the facts.
But so basically, what it does, it creates another substance in the liver, and then that gets leaked into the bloodstream. But it's a psychoactive substance, so that's when it becomes a mind-altering substance, and like you said, can cause this
delusion,
psychotic episode, literally a psychotic episode. And if you even Google excited delirium, it says you need to seek medical attention immediately. It needs medical attention, and it needs antipsychotic drugs to level it. Level these depletion in kind of serotonin and.
I've been there. I've been on. I mean, the last time my rock bottom. This time I had it like, and I could tell you 20 situations where my come down has been so drastic, so bad that, you know, I'm crying, weeping, and like just thinking, you know, like beside myself. Like, and I said to you on a Zoom call how I can imagine, because sometimes how your mindset gets, you can almost tip over a balance where you forget, you don't realize it's a come down. You have got, you know, even though everything points to it, you've been up sniffing drugs all night, but your psychosis or whatever is going on in your mind, that you don't even think it's a come down. You just think this is your state of mind forever.
Yes.
You know, and it
causes extreme paranoia as well. So, and you can imagine, and again, kind of like a lot of families that we've worked with, they've gone on to do kind of really, I mean, I can't even talk about methods, but really horrific kind of methods, and that is where methods of taking their own life, and that is where this, you know, psychotic episode is taking these young men. And again, young men with everything to live for. I mean, if Mandy was here now, she'd talk about Sean. Sean had just bought a house with his girlfriend. He'd gone home that morning, ready to go and buy the fridge freezer for the house. Everything to live for. And within an hour of being dropped off by the taxi at 7 a.m, by 8 a.m, he'd killed himself. But he'd left a video, and through that video, she could see this psychotic episode. And I said to you that before Jacob died, he'd taken a selfie because I had his phone back. He'd taken a selfie, and Jake had these piercing blue eyes. His eyes were black. So for me, I feel like his pupils had dilated so much that they'd just taken over the whole circle of his eyes, and he just had these kind of like black eyes. So whatever psychotic state that he'd gone into as well, I believe that this is the contributing factor in him taking his life, just one of those episodes. And like I said, Jacob was 24. He'd been on the kind of social clubbing scene for years and had probably, had taken drugs and had those come downs. But what was it this time, that he'd gone on to take his own life? And we know as well, another kind of contributing factor is that you can't sleep on it. When you've had kind of like this cocaethylene is in your system, you can't sleep, so you're sleep deprived, you're exhausted, and and what we know, I've spoken to other young men, they said sleep is your only way out of it, really. If you can fall asleep and then you wake up and you're feeling a lot better, but if you can't sleep as well, it's
horrific.
And we know Jacob had been up. I mean, he died late Saturday afternoon. He'd been up since Friday morning, the Friday before. So what's that? Kind of 38 hours that he hadn't slept for.
And what did you? Yeah, because my point on it being is that when you think everyone's saying or all of these, there's a rise in men's suicide, and look, listen, lads, if you're down, if things are getting to you, it's good to talk. That doesn't help people that are going into this psychosis, that are going into this delirium, right?
Yeah.
And you said to me as well. When we were outside, tell me that again. That the two most causes of suicide you were saying in men.
Yeah. So through our charity, where we've supported kind of hundreds and hundreds of young men over the last 8 years, the two biggest contributing factors to suicide that we see are cocaine and alcohol, drug use, and relationship breakdown.
Yeah.
So relationship breakdown is a huge contributing factor. And sometimes you're kind of thinking, is it the chicken and egg thing? So if cocaine and alcohol contributed to the relationship breakdown, or then the relationship breakdown, they'll use cocaine and alcohol as a coping mechanism.
Yeah.
So sometimes there's always kind of like that link as well with it. But those are the two, kind of biggest contributing factors when there's a breakdown, and sometimes they're estranged from their family and their children.
Tell me about those two lads that you had on that live podcast, and what they were what I couldn't believe it, but what they were sort of what they were sharing, what they were saying.
Yeah, so we had 3 lads come on the live podcast, so you can view it on the Central Club podcast, and they come on with their lived experience that they'd used alcohol and cocaine and they'd made suicide attempts. So they gave us an insight to how they felt at that time. And pretty much, as we talked about, that excited delirium, that severe agitation, aggression, that type of thing. And one of them said that when he was going through this episode, then, because suicide becomes a kind of a solution to a problem. So he had this problem, this psychotic kind of episode that he was having, and then he started to think of suicide then. So this is, this can be a solution to my problem. And he said that when he started to think of suicide and started to plan his suicide, that he went through this like beautiful epiphany of like, oh my gosh, this is going to end now, this horrendous kind of feeling that I'm getting. I mean, he didn't even relate it. It's only that when he spoke at the podcast and shortly before, he didn't even relate how he was feeling and that suicide attempt to the cocaine and alcohol.
See, that's what I just...
It's only when we contacted him to come and speak on the podcast that the penny dropped for him.
Wow, that's crazy, isn't it?
I know, that he didn't even know. And then there was another young man that spoke about that when his come downs were so bad, the only way that he could deal with his come down is to hold kind of like a knife to kind of like his main artery, and so that when it got so bad that he could just end it all.
Wow,
it's shocking.
It's so bad.
I know.
And
there's so many kind of young men, and we're talking about kind of there's been a huge rise in female suicides, and kind of again there's that link. Sadly, there's that link that we're seeing in females.
Do you know what? Do you know what? It's like, I can remember being in situations before where, you know, you've done I've done so much alcohol, drank so much, done so much drugs, that, you know, I'm drinking the alcohol to try and knock myself out, right? I'm like maybe if I don't mind talking about it, but it's quite embarrassing, but you know, thinking, right, if I just neck loads of Jack Daniels, then that would just knock me out and get rid of this come down, because I don't want to do any more drugs, right? Yes. And that's the point that you get to where, and this is where I think, like, you know, just to give you an insight into how it feels like when you're in that situation, it's like you like the sun's coming up. They call it the fear, right? Yeah. That's what everyone calls it, the fear. You know, the sun's coming up, the party's over, and then you've got what you're hit with is this realization is, right, now's the if you're even in that mindset that you realize it's a come down, now I've got to deal with this, or you go, right, I'm not ready for the come down, I'm going to do some more drugs. Yeah. Or if you think I'm going to try and sleep through it, and then it's even worse because you can't. So you're lying there, your thoughts are racing. Why have I done this? Everything like that. So I can see how it builds, and I've had before where, you know, I've got through that, but then my life has started again. You know, the people around me are waking up. Yeah. You know, and my life started, and then I'm in this place of fuck. It's, you know, it's very hard to handle, and I think that if you mix that with that psychosis, I mean, it's hard for me to say it, but I can understand how it can get there. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
And I think the most vulnerable position a person could be in is by themselves. Yeah. So, you know, that's the most vulnerable place they can be. And when we're looking at kind of like harm reduction, what we want to say is we want kind of like parents, family members, friends to recognise, you know, this. And, to make come down and to make that connection. And then if you feel a loved one has used alcohol and cocaine, I mean, the most fundamental thing is not to leave them by themselves.
Reach out to them in the morning, or reach out to them.
And make sure, because that, for us, when Jacob did use and he did have a night out, we were always around. But that weekend we were on holiday, so there was nobody around. So he was left by himself. And Mandy, the other mum, will tell you the same with Sean. He went home by himself. Right. And that is a very vulnerable place to be.
Because the hard thing, I guess, to think about is if these boys had just got through that day, yes, they'd still be with us.
Exactly. Do you know what? Somebody said to me, he didn't want to die forever, just that day. And that's so sad. So true. And that is so true. Yeah. And that is the heartbreaking thing about it. And if I could go back, I would gain much. I wish I had the understanding then that I have now with it. I really do. Because I would be having those open conversations with Jacob, and I probably wouldn't be as judgmental. Yeah. And I would be equipped to say, you know, if you get like this, I need to know where you are on the come down, because I would rather Jacob here alive today doing cocaine than dead not doing cocaine. Yeah. So I would say,
what would you say to the parents that are watching now, to anyone that's watching, or partners and parents, anyone that's watching, what would you say, how can they deal with this, someone that's using and someone that gets dark downturns?
So I would say, and this may sound like I'm condoning it, but I'm not, it's just purely harm reduction. I would kind of say, understand the environment that your adult children are living in now. We know cocaine use is on the rise. It's in every social setting. You probably work in a social setting, and 95% of the people in that setting will be doing cocaine. If not, they'll be offered cocaine. So it could be a time that they do use cocaine. Just understand that. Have those open conversations. I would say to Jacob, if I could go back, I'd say, look, if you're going to use cocaine and alcohol, please, can you let me know so I can be there the next day for this come down. So we can put things in place to keep you safe. Because it will pass, and by Monday, Tuesday, they're back in work, and they're okay. But that's what I would say. Let's put things in place. Can I be that go-to person when you're starting to feel like maybe you're having an episode, or you're extremely agitated, or whatever that is? Can I be that go-to person? So what we do with the foundation, we do kind of like a training, and that's part of the training. We do a suicide safety plan, and the same thing can be done around that. Let's do a safety plan. If you're going to use alcohol and cocaine, let's keep you safe the next day. Let's not act on this.
That's so powerful, because there's a number of things that instantly, that changes the narrative behind it all. I mean, we briefly spoke outside, there's so many parents out there that are like you said, oh, my hand on my heart, my son wouldn't use, and
Yeah.
da 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 da. Listen, the days of drug use being considered dangerous really are over. Like like my culture, definitely. I don't know if the
Yeah.
generation underneath me is any different, but when I grew up, it was. Every weekend it was who's getting a bag in, and it really, I think it's very rare that there's kids out there that aren't trying drugs.
Yes.
It's very rare.
It's part of youth culture.
Yeah, and it's
that
part of growing
young
up and
people are gonna
experimenting.
Experiment
Yeah.
with, and it doesn't discriminate either. It's kind of from anywhere. There's university students as well that have died, after using alcohol and cocaine. So, it's anybody
But the big thing,
discriminate.
Yeah, the big thing that you said, that because I can remember being I had a situation where I considered taking my own life, and I don't think it was like a coethylene. I've got it written here so I can pronounce it, because I'm dyslexic. It's just. I've said it so many different ways, and my wife's been like, you make sure that you learn that word. Well, she's like, you make sure, right, that's all. But I don't, for me personally, my life was falling apart, right? So, my father had just passed away. My career had imploded. I'd broken up with my missus. So, I mean, to me, I had mental health problems.
Yeah.
I was using to cope. I wasn't using socially. So it's a bit of a different situation with me. I had my it's like, it was like a longer thought process for me. So a different situation, someone more in the traditional sense,
Yes.
Not like this. But I when I reached out, like in the middle of the night, it was on the come down. I'd run out of drugs, and I was having serious dark thoughts. I still had like my wits about me, so to speak, to think this is wrong. You need to speak to someone. And I rang the Samaritans, but under no circumstances would I have reached out to my mum. I never would have reached out to anyone around me. And I think that if I'd had that conversation, if my mum had said to me, do you know what?
Say that.
Yeah.
If she would have had that conversation.
Because and the weird thing is, I talk, even back then, my mum knew I was using drugs, and she was very open. I've got a great relationship with my mum in regards to the honesty levels of me and my mum are fantastic. She knew, and if she asked me, what you're doing, I'd tell her. I have a great relationship with her, but she never consciously made the effort, because she wasn't educated. She didn't know to say, listen, there's serious risks. You could die by suicide. Yeah.
Of a psychotic
episode.
Yeah.
So if you can't handle your come down, or it's becoming bad, I want to be your go-to person.
Yes. And if she would have had that conversation, would have you rang her that night?
I rang the Samaritans, because I needed to tell someone how I was feeling. So I would have, but I've just thought I did think of her, but I thought I didn't want to.
And not everybody is going to be like that. No, but are going to have those conversations. But what you did was absolutely right, is to ring the Samaritans. And that is something that we put in our safety plan as well. If you haven't got that go-to person, let's get a helpline number in there. Let's get the Samaritans. They're phenomenal. We have so many young men reaching out to the Samaritans. They are there. They're there, non-judgmental. They will listen to you. And that feeling could pass. It will pass.
It did for me. And
it's
I thought when I rang the Samaritans, they're going to go, have you drank and used cocaine? Yeah, well, that's why you're feeling about it. Maybe stop doing drugs. But it wasn't.
No.
It was we did have that conversation, be honest, have you used? Because that could contribute to how you're feeling. But what else is it that's getting you down? And why would you think that? Do you not think the people around you are going to... And then they listened.
Yeah.
They simply listened.
They just listened.
And I was on that phone for, I think, a good 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Enough for me to calm down, man.
And for that feeling to
pass,
as well. Yeah, definitely.
So what can I do to help? What do you think I can do to help? What else can I do? What have you got planned? What's going on?
Well, we've got lots going on. We've Now we've got a website. We're looking to set up a helpline as well. Called,
Oh, you told me about
Yeah,
this. For
yeah.
people on the come down.
Yes, and parents and carers and family and friends, anybody to kind of get advice. So we're hoping to set up a helpline there. I think we're going to kind of call it Ask Kathleen. So that's one thing we're looking for. We just want really awareness. We want people to kind of like sit up, take notice, and put things in place if they're concerned, or or where to go if they need help and support. And so just kind of getting it out there really is great.
What would you say to anyone that's listening now that's on a hard come down or that's battling with these weekly sessions? I've opened up this podcast to a new audience, I think. I mean, the addiction and drug use and like help for drug use and that is such a taboo that people think they only need it if they've lost everything or if they're clutching a bottle of vodka on a park bench. But for me, it was cultural. It was weekend sessions, and again the come downs were destroying my mental health. It was destroying my family, and like if like I try and stress to these people watching the podcast every episode that if drink and drugs become like, if you just use drink and drugs anyway excessively and something goes wrong in your life and then it becomes a coping mechanism, if you add shame and guilt about bad things that have happened in your life on them come downs, it is a recipe for disaster. What advice would you give to any of the girls or guys out there that are using or trying to stop using or on a come down or high now?
I think, and I don't know, because it's hard to kind of like, seek that support. I think that's what the barrier that a lot of people come against is, where do I go with this? I would always say seek medical advice, first of all. There's a lot of GPs that are kind of clued in on this, and there's others that, we've had some of our clients go to the GP and say, this is my life, what do I do? And they're like, I don't really know. It's not something, if it was heroin, there's the methadone program. If it's alcohol, there's AA. So a lot of GPs are not kind of trained in what to do with cocaine. So first of all, I'd say kind of seek medical advice, but it's just to be open about it, is to speak about it and to talk about it. Okay, you might find somebody that they are judgmental, but it's just finding that one person that you can speak to. We hold CA meetings at the foundation. They're always kind of a good starting point. You've got people there who kind of like understand. There's the Samaritans, there's there's helplines. But I think it's just talking openly about it and being able to keep yourself safe. So again, it's that harm reduction. So if you are going to use, make sure you're in the company of kind of a trusted adult or that trusted person. Definitely don't be by yourself and seek that company.
Go on.
Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? It's what we say is like a lot of people, they're just buying into having a good time. That's it. They're buying into having
but they're not signing up for all of this.
Signing up for the rest of it. So it's about again educating yourselves.
Do you think that there's a connection with like your receptors or like your the things that fire your serotonin out being just saturated like session from session, so the come down's getting worse and worse the more you use, or do you think that there's anything like that? Because it used to be really fun for me, and then or is it just with age? I don't know, because I got too old for the sesh. But but I found that or maybe it's because you're pulling away from it so much on the mental aspect.
And I think in Mandy's paper, she does say about that when you first use drugs and alcohol, it opens up all those lovely dopamine and serotonin levels. But the more you use, it starts blocking it. So you've got to chase
the actual substance?
Yes. So it starts blocking kind of that feel-good factor. So blocking all those serotonin and dopamine levels. Don't quote me on it. I mean, we need to read Mandy's paper. And that kind of made sense for me as well. And then you've got to chase it more because you're trying to get that
first high,
get that back. And you can't, because chemically it's stopping, it's blocking, all those serotonin and dopamine levels. So...
Yeah, big one for me to take away from this is that if anyone out there is on the come down, this podcast really stands as like a big thing for me. For like, the more I've opened up, the more I've spoken about it. Actually, the people around me that love me, like, you know, my partner, my mum, and people like that, they like that I've opened up. Do you know what I mean? They actually like that. They see that as strength. So anyone that's on a come down or that's feeling like they're struggling, like you said, God, your mum would prefer you to tell them what's going on than to lose you, right?
Exactly. And like I said to you, when you did the live podcast the other evening with Kirk, and Kirk said something about, like, share with the person that you're concerned about, that may be using, or, you know, or want to stop. And I said, I wish you would have been around 8 years ago, because when, you know, Jake would struggle with a night out, they'd say, you know, you've got a bit of an ally here. You're not alone.
Watch these.
Watch these. So, you know, you do take criticism when you speak out. You know, it's a big thing to do. Like, you know that. I have, speaking about Jake's suicide and his drug use, you will always get that one person that's going to comment but bypass that, because most of the time you're doing a good thing. You know, people are grateful of this, and they can kind of relate to you, and that's what it kind of opens up a possibility of change as well.
Yeah.
So they've seen that, you know, that you used to do it, that, you know, but there is change.
Yeah.
So even at the moment, if they're not contemplating any change, there is that bit of hope and possibilities that one day I might get there. I'm not ready at the moment, but that's something you've done it, and I can work towards. So I just want to emphasize that you know, drugs in general, drink and drugs, or especially like cocaine, it's got such a bad stigma around it. Like, you know, you think, oh, my friends and family, well, your friends know anyway, but your family or work or whatever. But the truth of the matter is, you've got a habit, you got involved in something that you're no longer enjoying, and it's tricky. It's tricky stopping it. You know, if you're sat there right now, or you have been this weekend or something like that, and you're like, this is killing me, I can't fucking do this no more, and then by Friday when you're feeling better again, you're doing it again, and while you're doing it, you know it's going to make you feel worse. You're just stuck in a habitual loop, and you can break it. John, have you got anything you'd like to add to this before we wrap it up?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for sharing your story and all this information. I've, not to be like, oh, I know so much, but I've always thought I've known quite a lot about drugs and the effects and the different kind of processes that happen, but I'd never heard of this until Dan mentioned it. So I think this is a really, really interesting bit of information that's going to help a lot of people. I knew about, how bad come downs can be, and that you need to build tolerance to stuff, and not this combination of this new chemical. Has this been something that's been known in the literature for a long time, or is this, because I've never heard of it?
Yeah, it has. And like I said, when we all got together, Mandy, being kind of like the nurse and the medic and the academic in this, she was the one that kind of like, okay, let's look deeper into this. There's got to be some kind of scientific reason. And she has produced the fact sheet paper that I sent over to you earlier. I don't know whether we can put that in some kind of link.
We'll add it.
I mean, I'm just kind of reeling off this kind of third hand, because she's written this and she's done the research into it, and it's there. There are all the facts. It's probably been something that's been around, ever since cocaine and alcohol.
But I didn't know.
But
we just didn't know about
people
it. None of my friends
putting that
would have heard
together,
about it.
and how it creates this third substance, and it's detrimental both to kind of like mental health and physical health, because that's what causes the heart attack, because the blood pressure is rising and then the heart is having to work harder. So it's on both both ends it is really kind of detrimental. So even if you think you're safe, well, no, I don't get those psychotic episodes. I can control it. I'm in control with it. There's the physical
until you're not
aspect of it as well. Yeah. So and that's something that we've come across a lot as well, is young people dying by heart attack from it. Yeah. So
anything else, John? No.
That was sort of the main thing. But I think just by bring this to people's awareness. I think it's going to make people way more conscious about what they're doing, especially combining substances. But also just if guys or girls ever find themselves in that spot, it's provided a label to it. You can let you know what's happening. So
Yeah,
that's what you reach
that's
out
right.
about.
And we just need to be open. So
Yeah.
somebody could reach out and say, "Oh, I think I'm having that kind
Yeah.
of excited delirium or that
Yeah.
that psychotic episode here."
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
just knowing, isn't it? And that's the thing, when there is kind of awareness around any kind of illness, people go, look for the signs. If you get this and this,
Yeah.
that's a sign you could be having a stroke or a heart attack. It's like looking for the signs. If
Yeah.
you feel extremely agitated or extremely aggressive or paranoid,
Oh my God,
this-
I had it. I mean,
this the
I remember
sign?
sitting and telling you, talking you through some personal episodes of things that I'd done and stuff that had happened, and both of you going, yeah.
You had
You
excited
had-
delirium.
Yeah, it was fucking scary.
Yeah, and I remember Mag saying to you, "You're lucky to be alive."
Yeah.
Because when you kind of experience excited delirium, you're at more risk of a heart attack then than any other time.
I can remember one specific time where I snapped out of it, and I felt the moment that I came out of it. Like I was counselling at the time, and I think I told you that I spoke to my counsellor. I thought I was bipolar.
Yes.
Because the shift in what was going on in my mind and with what I perceived my reality to be to what it was scary.
It's almost like waking up from a dream almost.
Yeah.
It was, and and I can remember speaking to my partner at the time and saying to her, something's not right with me, and feeling really vulnerable. I want to finish on asking you, if you can, to just maybe have a word with. I don't know if you can. I don't know how to put this across, but any mothers that may have come across this podcast that have maybe freshly experienced what you've experienced, any advice or thinking or anything you can pass on to them, because we have the podcast goes so far. Someone could be sat searching and be very new to experiencing this. What would you say to, or anyone, not just mothers, anyone?
Yeah. Just seek help and advice.
Yeah.
Around this. Speak about it. Like I said again, seek medical advice around it, and just kind of like have an open mind as well. Do a bit of research, look into it. We've got the Cocaethylene website. Visit that, have a look.
I was thinking more along the lines of someone that had lost someone.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you've lost someone, I mean, what we would like, the more people we've got behind us to say this is a real issue, the more then we can push for the agenda, for public health. They bring out kind of the suicide kind of talk to me to strategy in Wales, and drugs and alcohol is not even on that, and that's what we want. We want to say, this is a contributing factor. I don't want to take away from anybody that's died by suicide or have had suicide thoughts, and drug and alcohol is not related, and that there is mental health,
serious mental
health problems, because there are many reasons that a person will take their life. So I don't want to take that away from them. But if there's anybody out there that's looking for support, looking for advice, come and see us. And if anybody would like to come and join us on the Cocaethylene task force, and together we can be a huge force to make changes. And all we'll do in the process is save lives. These are the most, it's so preventable. Suicide is the most preventable kind of, issue, and we can save lives, but sometimes we need that voice as well.
Yeah.
We do need a voice.
Well, you've come so far for me for this. Thank you. And we were building up to this. A lot of people don't realise the work that goes into these podcasts behind the scenes. I really wanted to approach this in the conversation. I mean, we still had a laugh talking as well.
Yes.
But I mean,
I'm no sense, I going through this, I still enjoy life. I still laugh. I learn not to be sensitive to, things.
Yeah.
But, and that's it. Yeah, it's a taboo subject.
Yeah.
But I'm out there, and and for me, I just didn't want Jacob, his friends, all these young men and women to die in vain. I have to be a voice. It's like you don't get to take my son and I sit back and do nothing. I'm out there. I'm I'm educating people. You're not doing that to me. So.
Well, you've got me now. You've got me. You've got my platform. You've got my social media. You've got my groups. You know, if I won't say what you said. You ladies are like. You know, you said we won't say that. But whenever you
that's for another podcast.
Yeah. But you're welcome to look whenever anything's going on and you're like, look, Dan, can you help us with this? You know, do you want to come and talk at this?
Yes.
You know, I'm quite cool as well, so I can connect with people.
Yeah.
But yeah, please use me. But thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
And we've done this
and being able to share this. This story.
Yeah, and you've done it. You've done it so well. You're very articulate. You've been done it. She was worried about her accent at first. I asked her if she could tone it down a bit, but
yeah, we'll fix that in post. No, it's a beautiful accent.
But we got this on the weekend as well. It's so strange that this is on the weekend for World Suicide Day on the 10th of September,
yes, it is.
And also the date was around Jacob's.
Yeah, so World Suicide Prevention Day is the 10th of September. So that's a great opportunity to get out there, talk about suicide. Sadly, it falls in the same week as Jacob's 32nd birthday.
Wow.
And his best friend's birthday, Andrew, was the day before, where he would be turning 31.
Oh my God.
So yeah, it's a bit of a tough week, but we just got to get out there doing what we're doing, and hopefully, and it helps. It's helped me.
Well, come on, I mean, look, your message. I saw your message, and I was blown away by it, and I had a light bulb moment. And all I want to do is I want to spread that light bulb moment. I want. You know, there's probably lads that have watched this who've gone, "Fuck me, I felt that." And like instead of this is what I wanted to happen on this podcast. Instead of people just thinking, I've got to give up. I've got to give up doing it because it's costing me a fortune and making me feel like shit. I want people to go, do you know what? I've got to get up with it. I'll give this up because one day.
Yes. Yeah.
You know,
this could happen and change is there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I've got a feeling I'm going to see you again.
Yeah, I know you'll get rid of me now.
All right, let's thank you for coming. And just quickly before I go, where can I find your website and your help and everything? We'll put it in the bios and that. But
yeah, so we've got the Jacob Abraham Foundation, www.Jacob Abraham Foundation. We've got the coalkalliance.org Foundation. So just give us a Google. We're there. We pop up on there. And contact us. I've got a team of counsellors that work for me, and where we can help, we will help.
Okay. Thank you very much, Nicola. And thank you, John, mate. Thank you very much for today.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.
I'm just going to sign off. So thank you guys for joining us. Bit of a serious one. I know there's a lot of people that jump on for the comedy on these podcasts or the light-hearted moments, but this was something that we've prepped for, and I was really excited to get out across, and something that I want to continue working on. This cocathylene, I've still got it here. This cocathylene, I never knew it. I never knew that it could create psychosis. And if you think about not psychosis, but what was the word? The excited delirium, and also the psychotic drug, in your mind that could create these things. And the way that I associated myself, I'm still going on. I'm going to sign off, but the way that I associated it with, or my thinking is, when people go mad and they kill other people and they've got no control over it. Do you know what I mean? Like psychopaths, when they go into those rages, if that's the way that I kind of tried to think about it, and I thought to myself, no one knows. No one's ever known that could be a possibility, that could happen to you. So bear that in mind. Thank you very much for joining us. And look, we're here to help. Jump on the comments, check all the social media. And if you know anyone that you think, like Nicola said, like we were saying from the live podcast, if you know anyone that this podcast could help, share it with them and give us some feedback in the comments. From me and Nicola, thank you. That's it. Bye-bye. Hello! We are going to take the Menace to Sobriety to the live stage, and we need a live studio audience to interact with us, to come along, listen, laugh, and learn everything about sobriety, mental health, well-being, and just come along for a night out with like-minded people. We are going to be going live on the 30th of August, 27th of September, 25th of October, and the 29th of November. That's one a month. Get your tickets now. Come down, meet the team, and have some fun. Menace to Sobriety Live, coming soon. Oh yes, and don't forget, if you want to come and see me live and meet me, I'm going on tour. The Daniel O'Reilly Out of Character full UK tour kicks off in January 2024, and tickets are on sale right now. I'm going to try and get out and meet as many of you as possible, and of course, I'm going to be bringing the laughs all over the UK. There's 23 dates right now, and I'm adding more all the time. Hit the link in the bio and get your tickets now and come have some fun. If you're going through a tough time at the moment, please don't suffer in silence. Feel free to pick up the phone and contact any of these helplines. I personally, myself, at one of my darkest points, contacted the Samaritans, and it completely changed my outlook and got me out of a really deep, dark place. A problem shared really is a problem halved. So if you don't feel confident talking to those around you, check out any of these organisations and give them a call. This is my Facebook group. Just simply search on Facebook, Men and Their Emotions. It's for men only, but once you're in there, you can talk anonymously about your problems and help others and just feel a little bit of community. So come join the conversation, Men and Their Emotions, on Facebook. Thanks for watching.
Menace to sobriety. Just a menace, just a menace. Just a menace. Menace to sobriety. Just a menace, just a menace. Menace to sobriety. Just a menace, just a menace. Just a menace. Menace to sobriety. Just a menace, just